One of the best things you can do here to protect yourself, your property, and your family is to know what kind of flood zone do you live in. All of us here in West Central Florida live in some sort of flood zone, and understanding the risks associated with it are really important. To find it, all you've got to do is put in your county or city name into Google and then the words flood zone. I put in Hillsborough County flood zone, took me right to this map. Hillsborough County has a nice viewer that you can access right there that will show you a map of where we are, and it'll allow you to zoom in right down to the street level. And when you get close enough, you will see it start to populate with flood zones in the blue and the orange. If you don't know where do you exactly live on a map and prefer to put in your address, you can just put it in right there in that box, hit search, and it'll take you down to your property. As you zoom in and explore, you will notice it's not just coastal areas like Davis Islands and downtown Tampa that are in flood zones, but places along the Hillsborough River and even interior bodies of water, such as this pond here in Tampa Heights by Interstate 275. You'll also notice that different flood zones have different code names. Some start with an A, some start with a V, others may have an X when you actually access your property. What does all that mean? Well, there's a website for that will explain it to you. Now, folks at Climate Check have a really nice chart here that shows you increasing risk as you go through the flood zones. Most of us here in West Central Florida will live in some version of Zone X. That is not a flood-free zone. That is a low-risk zone. You still can see flooding if you live in Zone X. That is really important. Zone X folks usually live in places that are not near a body of water or the coast. So you would flood more often in a heavy rain event. And that's something that's much more difficult to predict. For those of you that live near a body of water, such as a river or lake or a pond, you may be in a high-risk A zone, AE. AH, AO, whatever that area is, if it starts with A, you're in a high-risk zone because of a body of water nearby. And then those that live right at the coast, you're in some version of zones V, VE, maybe V with a number. That basically means you're at the coast and the surge is coming into your area during a storm. These areas, zones A and zones V, you are in a very special place. In fact, places that are in high-risk zones, such as Zone A or Zone V, have a 1 in 100 chance of flooding any one year. Now, at first, that seems rather low, but here's another way to look at it. This is a great stat from floodsmart.gov. Over a 30-year mortgage, so the time you plan to own your home, if you live in Zone A or V, there's a 25% chance that you will flood at least once during that 30-year mortgage, with some places flooding more than that. In fact, folks even outside of Zone A could still see flooding. In fact, the National Flood Insurance Program shows that 40% of claims to that program are outside of high-risk zones, A and V. Many times, those claims come from Zone X. And that is why even if you're in Zone X, you still need to be cautious about flooding during tropical storms and heavy rain events.